Hey guys, it's Albert, and I want to talk to you today about Netflix's new hit series, American Vandal. This is not something I planned to do, but I had my brain light up last night, like laying awake until 1 o'clock in the morning thinking about this show, and I essentially have to talk about this. The first thing you should know is that A, yes, it's good, and B, yes, I'll be talking spoilers in this video. So if you have not seen it, you should go do that, okay? That is a thing that you should do if you haven't, because you're missing out. It's excellent. But I think there are some interesting things being overlooked by a lot of the fans of this show. And I've read several comments online and people talking about and loving this show as they should. And on the surface of it, this seems like such a juvenile thing, right? Like it's a show about investigating high schoolers investigating, no less, someone who drew a bunch of dicks on some teachers' cars. The stakes there are not too high. It's insanely juvenile to think of making a serious show about this. It's the kind of thing that a bunch of stoner friends get together and they all get high and someone says, all right, but what if we did like, okay, it's cereal, right? It's cereal, but it's about dicks on cars. All right, and they go like super in depth. And then they just laugh for 5 minutes because that's the funniest thing any of them have ever heard, because dicks on cars and cereal juxtaposed. And yet, this show is so well crafted and the story is so well put together. But the thing that I think is being missed in some of the discussions I've seen about American Vandal is that it's an exploration of our desire to make a mark on the world. And I know you're thinking, oh, yeah, because someone spray painted dicks and they made a mark on the world. And yes, I'm actually going to get to that specifically. But more interestingly to me, you have these kids who are living in this social media culture where a reaction to a thing that you post is essentially what defines you. And you have these two characters, Peter and Dylan, as a juxtaposition of each other. They both work in this studio where they make the morning news for the school, right? And you see both of these guys trying to make their mark on the world in some way or other. You know, Peter does it because he just by trying to be a serious newscaster. Dylan does it by zooming in on the news girl's boobs as she's talking about what's going to be in the lunch cafeteria thing. But they're both like making their statements. And it's interesting to me that Dylan has a YouTube channel and he's posting stuff on YouTube, and he talks about the stuff that he posts on YouTube very seriously. You know, it's a hilarious moment where he compares the artistic evolution of himself as a videographer from Baby Farts 1 to Baby Farts 2. But you can also tell that this is something that he takes, this is where he's putting his identity. He's putting his identity online. And for the most part, people don't really care. He's got a few hundred followers, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a ton. And so you have this guy who's making these obscure videos, and then here comes Peter. And Peter is also someone with a YouTube channel, right? He's also someone who's making content. And there is a dynamic there that I don't think the show expressly articulates, but I do think it's important because Peter, in his examination of Dylan and his crime, is also, in a way, trying to make his stamp on the world and say, look, okay, this idiot makes these juvenile, silly YouTube channel things that are, you know, are just him farting on babies. But in contrast, he himself is trying to create a narrative of something that's higher than that, that's better than that. And he is making this narrative trying to prove himself better, and yet, at the same time, he's making it in such a way that elevates the status of the guy who makes the stupid videos. Peter doesn't get a lot of personal credit for his documentary. When he posts American Vandal online within the universe of the show, when it goes up on YouTube and the comments come in, most of them are about Dylan and about how people identify with him and want him to go free and to be exonerated, and they are buying into Peter's point of view, but they don't really buy into Peter as a person. He's kind of annoying throughout the show, and I don't think you see a lot of people reacting very strongly to him in a positive way. So I think that dynamic is super interesting. And the theme of trying to make your mark in the world is, honestly, I think, for me anyway, the clue to who did it. All right. Now, I put this in air quotes because you can't know. I don't have proof of this. I am basing this on a thematic understanding of what the show's doing, not a actual proof-based, I can tell you for sure this person did it, but here's my case for who drew the dicks. It was Ming. Now, Ming seems like kind of one of those throwaway theories that you have about mid-season, episode 3 or 4. You see him shotgunning all those beers, and you think there's something going on there. But then you move on, and there's other people with more motive and more interesting things going on. But hear me out here. Ming is someone who is almost completely unseen in the high school world where they live. Everybody knows who he is. They know his name. They have a sort of a general sense of goodwill towards him because he's a nice guy. But he's not making an impact on anybody's life, right? He's in the school AV team, but he's never in any of the videos. He's not changing the way the videos are presented like Dylan is with his wonky camera work. So he's not able to make a mark there. You then see him try to break out of his shell by being the guy who does 10 beers at a party. Even though he's clearly miserable, I would contend that nobody's forcing him to do that. I think that this is something that Ming is doing, trying to make a name for himself, and it doesn't stick. Nobody is talking about the fact that Ming shotgunned 10 or 11 beers in one night. They just still talk about the fact that he's nice and maybe from China. They don't even know that he's from Toronto. And so that's where my motive is coming from on this. I think Ming is just doing this because he wants to be noticed. And I know that the show pays a lot of attention to the idea of vendettas. All right, that's the theory, the motive behind every single car that gets tagged. They're always looking for, in the motive, it's a vendetta. For a bit, when it's Krista, they're talking about maybe it's a political statement or something, but that, never held any water for anybody, even the viewers. And when they come back around and try to pin it on Krista, they're back at the vendetta thing. And I think that Krista 100% did have good reason to hate Coach and hate the faculty and all that stuff. But here's why I think maybe it wasn't her. Because here's what we know. We see a vendetta play out in American Vandal. On screen, live, on camera, one vendetta gets shown. And it's from someone who absolutely had their life ruined by that person. And how do they react? Well, it's Dylan, and he goes up to the snitch that ratted him out and just throws his lunch on the floor. That's it. He doesn't give him the beating of his life. He doesn't, try to ruin him somehow. He doesn't mess his face up with a knife. It's just sort of like, yeah, here you are. I threw your sandwich down. What are you going to do about it? And walks off. Here's what I think. I think that what the show is saying is that motive and drive to do something are necessarily complicated. And that, sure, Krista had reason to draw the dicks, okay? But it's entirely possible that her CPR training for certificate was just because she was off CPR training with her super hot lifeguard boyfriend. It's possible that she did it, but if we're going with the theme of the show, A, about being leaving your mark, and B, as stated, being about our preconceptions about people, I think Ming is good for it. I think Ming finds this can. He's been wasted at this party and nobody cares. Nobody comes up to him in the hall the next day and says, "Hey, Ming, he got wasted at that party." Just sort of go on about their day. He's being ignored, and so he has this can of spray paint. It's a crime of opportunity. He doesn't even go that fast, all right? And here's how I know that. Because there are 3 paint splatters. 3. He stops 3 times. It's not that the first car is somehow the one that the person had the vendetta against and then they drew all the dicks. He waits to get caught like 3 times and then keeps going. Again, I don't have any proof about this, but it makes as much sense as anything else that they say in the show, so I'm going to say that it's gospel truth. Now, of course, at the end, he does get cold feet, right? Someone does see him, they yell, Ming freaks out and comes to his senses and says, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm going to get kicked out of the country, I'm an exchange student, like, they can really mess me up, I got to go delete the evidence." And he does that, and then he just walks off. His alibi sucks. He just says he was at home watching television. Nobody questions that. And that's what I think happened. Again, I got no proof. I love reading some of the other crazy theories, although I think Kraz, the people you hear who think Kraz did it. I mean, motive, sure. If we're going with the vendetta thing, then yeah, Kraz could have done it, but that guy, no. No. And the larger point I think there is to be made here is that American Vandal is saying we don't understand people. We can't break people down into a motive and an opportunity, and the opportunity is real. You know, obviously for the crime to have happened, the person need to be able to be there. But beyond that, people are just really complicated. And I think that there is no definitive answer. But this is my theory. And based on what I've seen in the show and how this show is about trying to achieve immortality in the minds of others in the space of the very short and tumultuous 4 years at high school, I think I've made a pretty compelling case for Ming as the Vandal. I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys have watched American Vandal. I loved the show, and I think it's the best thing that's been on Netflix that I've ever seen. As far as a Netflix original content, I mean, it was compelling and funny and thought-provoking, and I mean, just wow. Super wow. I was up until 1 o'clock at night last night, and that's way past my bedtime, guys. I'm like a 10 o'clock dude. Thinking about this show, thinking about the ramifications, thinking about all of the ways that it just is a brilliant character study and an indictment of the high school culture, and it just nailed it. It nailed everything. So if you guys like this video, leave a like in under the thumbs up thing. You know how that works. Leave a comment. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys who have some different thoughts or think that I'm stupid for thinking this. And I'd love to hear how you feel about it. And I will see you guys some other time with some other videos. Take care, y'all.